Retrogrades should not be feared, right? It's all part of the cycle. And we often hear that Mercury is retrograde and it's like this big fearful time, like what's going to break down. Essentially, it's just an energy of turning inward, reflecting and reviewing. And can you imagine if we never did that in our lives? Like, how could we possibly move forward? So knowing and understanding when the retrogrades are occurring, we can actually actively use that to go and reflect and review and turn inwards and learn, like, what have we learned about ourselves over the last 3 months or however long it's been, so that we can then step forward with these insights in our pocket and understanding so that we can move forward from a better place.
Welcome to the She Who Dares podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Wilson, the founder of She Who Dares. I'm a specialized breakthrough and mindset coach, business mentor, online course creator, and your number one no BS hype woman. I'm here to remind you who the fuck you are and reignite your personal power through powerful and expanding conversations on all things business, mindset, and energetics, to help you break through to your next level of success in all areas of your life, business, and bank account. Each episode is designed to expand your mind, shift your identity, raise your frequency, as well as give you success strategies to help you step into your highest, most powerful, abundant, successful, and magnetic you. So, I dare you to join me each episode, and I double dare you to implement what you learn and go all in on you. All in on your life, your business, your success. Because if you do, like so many of my She Who Dares clients and students, you will become everything that you know deep down you can be. Ready? Let's friggin' do this. Okay, guys, welcome back. It is part 2 with Abby from @Stars by Abby, a beautiful astrologer, and we are about to deep dive into the 2025 astrological energies and themes. I'm trying to sound like an astrologer, but I have no idea. I'm going to hand it over to Abby, and she's going to tell us all about it. I'm using words like themes, energies, transit, houses, but Abby is your girl. She knows. Abby, I want to start with this. I want to set the tone. Can you tell me, okay, because I have been reading that the energies of 2025 are as big and powerful and expanding and changing, shifting, I don't know, as what astrologers saw energetically for 2020, which actually excites me. Do you know what I mean? Not for like all of the shit things that happen, but I'm seeing it's like a bigger expansive energy. So that's exciting. We're going to get into that. I'm going to ask you that, but I want to know, you've looked at the energies of 2025. What are 3 words that you would use to describe what you're seeing in the astrological energies of 2025?
Yeah, I'm probably going to give you some phrases because I think it's hard to sink it down into words. So the first phrase I'm going to say is new beginnings. Then we have expansion of emotional wisdom. And the third phrase I'll say is all around empowerment and independence. So that's what we're looking at in 2025.
It excites me. Like, I'm like, wow, those phrases are like, bring it on, sign me up, take my money, honey. Sounds amazing. Okay, so can you please give myself, because I know nothing. I've seen like snapshots and like things you've shared, but can you give me like the insight, the overview of how this year is going to start? Like, what can we expect in the beginning of the astrological energies and from your point of view of 2025?
Yeah. So the start of the year doesn't really match start of year energy. And this has actually been the case for the last few years. So reflect on the last few years and how they've started, because the reason is we're starting 2025 with a number of planets in retrograde, okay? And retrograde is that inward, internal, reviewing, reflecting kind of energy that the planets bring about. And so we start the year with 3 planets in retrograde: Mars, Jupiter, and Uranus. And so that gives us this energy of not necessarily wanting to push forward. It's not the time to just be like, let's get started with things. You might feel like you want to do that, but it might not kick off as quickly as you hope. That's one of the biggest things about the starting of the energy. There is also a really powerful new moon happening on the 31st of December or the 30th, depending where you are. And that is a new moon in Capricorn, which we can set our intentions for what big, bold, ambitious dreams and desires we want to call in, not just for the next month, but for the next 12 months. Because moons, whilst they do work in a month cycle, they also work in a 12-month cycle. So that new moon in Capricorn is incredibly powerful, especially where it falls. Now, astrology doesn't really align with the Gregorian calendar. So, we celebrate the new year. So we can use this moon to step into 2025 in a really empowered way.
I love that. I, for many, many years, ran a course called Visioning Your Year, and I would always do it around the first week of February because I always have felt, and that's probably the last 5 years. I mean, I launched it in 2020, I think it was. And I felt like January is so chaotic. Like no one's like quite ready yet. So I'd always do it in February and people loved it. They were like, this is a perfect date. Like I never feel ready right at the beginning of the year, even though there's this like societal pressure that this is the time to like get your entire life together for the year. So that makes sense. I love it.
Yeah, I think too, what you're talking about there actually is where astrology is playing out in your life, because you say every February, right? And so for every February for you is Aquarius season. And Aquarius season for you is the time of community and the things that are familiar to you. So that doesn't surprise me that you're being activated in those areas of your life at that time every year.
I love it. This is why I love talking to Abby. Because if that happens, you learn something about yourself. Like, wow, tell me more. I love it. Okay, you know what? I actually remember now you saying something months ago about exactly what you just said, that it's a slower start to the new year. And you actually, there was a date you put out. It was somewhere in February. You were like, I wouldn't be planning like your huge yearly transformation, you know what I mean, until February sometime. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Basically, the date is the 24th of February I can't remember. So I think it's maybe to the 2nd of March. It's just a small window of time. And we've just been talking about retrogrades, but this is the window for this year. And there's another little window, I think it's at the end of March into April. I'd have to check my notes. But this is a time when there are no planets in retrograde. And so there's that 10 or so day window, and there's another one of those. And that's all we get for this year. Last year, we had 9 weeks where there was no planets retrograde. So that's the perfect starting energy. It's the perfect time to move things forward. Like last year, we had 9 weeks of this. This year, we're lucky if we're going to have 3. So we want to be utilizing that energy to get something off the ground, move something forward, launch a project in our business or something like that. It's the perfect energy for that.
And it's the day before my birthday, which is so 20 because I'm the Feb, right?
Yeah.
It stuck out to me. I was like, okay, Crystal, your master plan to like change your entire life, don't start it until after the 24th of Feb. Like, I just remember like taking note of it. So that works well for me. I'll be on Noosa on a 7-day holiday, turning 41 with some of my closest friends, and I can like plan my life there. So I can relax until then. I love it. Thanks.
I think something that you have taught me is that we don't always have to use the astrological energy, right? I'm always like, when is this going to be the best time? And it's just like, actually, now is the best time. So who cares what's happening with the planets? And half the time, I'm looking in the future and back. I don't even know what's going on right now.
Quite interesting, because a lot of the time when Abby, we do our business mentorship, I always honor Abby's work. So I'm always like, you tell me what you're seeing in the dates, the charts of like when would be the best time for you to launch this or do this thing. And do these dates make sense? I feel like I don't talk about this stuff with any of my other clients, but because you're an astrologer, there's a real like heavy presence. But sometimes as her business mentor, I'm like, we can just go now though. Do you know what I mean? Like I have to push her out of her astrology box and be like, but you could also, if it feels good, we could just go now. So I love that you mentioned that. Okay, tell me, Abby, like as I mentioned at the beginning of this part 2, I've seen people talking about like there's a similar vibe, energy of bigness in terms of what astrologers are seeing from 2020 and what they're seeing? It's like looks similar. I don't know. You explain it. What can you break it down for me?
Yeah, so 2020, there was some really big, significant transits happening, essentially planets lining up. But 2025, I actually think is even bigger because we're actually seeing planets shift signs, the outer planets. And we talked a little bit about this in the first part. But we've already seen Pluto shift into Aquarius. That happened this year, 2024. Pluto only shifts signs every 15 to 20 years. So this year, we're also seeing Neptune shift signs. Neptune only shifts signs every 14 years. We're seeing Uranus shift signs. That only shifts signs every 7 years. And Saturn shift signs every 3 years. Jupiter every year, and all the other personal planets, they shift every year. But the fact that we're seeing all of these outer planets shifting signs in the same year, that is so rare. Like, it's a real change in energy, and I think it's going to be really significant. What's actually happening is these planets, they're all shifting from yin energy signs into yang energy signs. I'm using those terms especially because I don't like to use feminine and masculine, because I think no matter how much we try, we still get caught up in that, what does that actually mean? And,
I'm having a brain fart. Can you repeat that? And then
so
just
yang is the masculine.
yang is
We can say yang, we can say positive, we can say external, we can say masculine. I just don't like to use masculine because, the way people really perceive it, it's really, I think it's really confusing.
I just was also lost. So I was like, I forgot.
Yeah,
these
totally.
differences. I know what they are. One's positive, negative, feminine, masculine. But I was like, can you actually tell me what they are?
Yeah.
You might need as well. Yeah.
So what this actually means as a collective is the energy is not going to be in this yin energy space, which is more sitting back, letting things happen. It's actually stepping into a more empowerment, a more doing, a more go-getting energy, and just like a starting energy, as opposed to a receiving. Now, we all can deal with both energies. We actually have Jupiter moving into a yin energy sign, so that, there is a bit of yin energy there, but it's going to be very activating. And whilst we might have just been in this energy of, or just as a collective, sort of like a sitting back and allowing. And you can see how in some instances that's really good, but in some instances, we don't want to just allow things to happen. We want to actually go out and take action on things. So that's what this shift is going to be all about. It's going to be about getting out and actually doing and having an impact and going out and, grabbing the bull by the horn, so to speak.
I love it. That excites me. And I can see now why you choose not to use those terms when you described it.
Yeah.
To say planets are moving into masculine energy, I would have taken that as heavy, negative. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when you describe it like that, we're taking action, we're moving forward, we're being expansive. It's just so more expanded way of saying it. So thank you. That makes so much sense.
Astrology has, I always say there's light and shade. So there's good and bad, or there's highs and lows with every single sign, all right? And it's the same thing, right? We can look at masculine. I could have said masculine energy and everyone could have been like, masculine energy. But it's actually
really differently if you had a masculine versus how you described it then. So thank you. Very good. Okay, so I often see you speak about we're in this season, we're in that season, because I'm a rising moon Sagittarius, double Sag, which should make a lot of sense to people if you understand that stuff. We've just finished Sagittarius season. We're moving into Capricorn season. Can you actually just explain what that means and how that applies to me, who's a Pisces, or you're a Leo, you who's a Leo?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because we're starting to see now, we describe the seasons of the zodiac. And so what this actually means, because I just wondered if people might not know what that actually means, it's actually when the sun moves into that sign. And if we're looking at our chart, we can actually see what area in our life that is illuminating. All right. And so we actually need to know our rising sign for this. So you want to be thinking of Sagittarius season, Crystal, when we're talking about this. So Sagittarius, it's your rising sign. So the sun moves into your first house, which is the most powerful part of the chart. All right. It's all about you, your new beginnings. Usually when the sun moves into your first house, it's just this returning of energy. It's just moved through the 12th house, which can be a challenging energy. So if you think back to Scorpio season, that might have been challenging for you. And I'm speaking specifically to you as a Sagittarius.
Scorpio season.
Scorpio season would have been end of October and most of November.
Yeah, challenging.
Yeah.
But December, I come alive with my Christmas.
Yeah, and that's probably the same every year. You come alive because you come back to yourself, and I see it. Christmas is coming and it's exciting, and you love that celebratory energy of closing out the new year. And so that is where the sun is coming to illuminate your life. And so it's really good to have an understanding of what house the sign correlates or links up to in your birth chart, so you sort of know what's going to be in focus this season for me.
I love it. And so it also so Bruce is a Capricorn. So how I've always interpreted it when I've seen it as someone who knows very little about astrology is that this is Bruce's birthday month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the season of all Capricorns are having their birthdays in the next 28 days. What's the cycle? 30 to 31 days or?
Yeah. What is the cycle? I think it's the same as a month, really. I'd have to look exactly.
Good enough
It
answer.
does shift slightly every year. We've just been in a leap year, so the dates are slightly different. Next year, the dates will kind of go back to what we always know them to be. But, the reason that this can actually apply for your sun sign as well is because there's a type of astrology that says that if we actually don't know what our rising sign is, we can just read the chart as if our sun sign is the same as our rising sign. So that's why horoscopes can apply, and we suggest read for your rising sign, but also read for your sun sign.
That's a fascinating thing for me because my whole life I've read my horoscopes for Pisces. And then I think I learned it through you in the last few years. And then I hear a lot of other astrologers also read for your rising. And I was like, well, I didn't know what my rising was until 2018, 19. And so that's super interesting. So now I always read both Pisces and Sagittarius. Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk about the moon. I feel like I'm a moon girl. I don't know if anyone else is going to relate to that, but I'm a moon girl. I feel super connected to the moon. And I think as women, that's actually correct. Our whole cycle flows with the moon. So I'm not special. It actually is all. But talk to me about why some people are super affected by full moons or new moons, and it can really emotionally rattle them, and why others are not. Is there something specific about that?
Yeah. So you said that you're really connected to the moon, and that's so interesting because our moon sign is all about our feelings and our emotions and our inner world. So I describe the moon sign as it's your relationship with you. It's that voice in your head that talks to yourself and motivates you or criticizes you or whatever it does. That is your moon at play. You can also think back to around the age of 7 and before. You probably would have played out with a lot of the aspects of your moon sign. But you asked the question about why do some people, why are they so influenced by a full moon, perhaps, the full moon coming up, and then maybe I don't feel anything. And the reason is because it's where it's playing out in your chart. And, let's just use this moon coming up. It's a Capricorn new moon. So this new moon in Capricorn is going to be playing out for me in my first house. I'm a Capricorn rising. So I know that it's probably going to have a positive influence. It's a new beginnings. But for you, unless it's playing out in an area of your chart or it's connecting with another one of your planets, it might not affect you as much as it affects me. Okay. So if it's not in a significant place in your chart or essentially talking to your personal planets, that's why it might not have much of an impact on you. There's also a technique that I use that's really, I find scarily accurate. And it gives us a kind of an MVP planet, a planet to watch for our birthday year, essentially. And sometimes the moon planet is, that's your planet to watch for the year. And so that's why the moon energy could be affecting you more in that year, then it's affecting your friends or your partner or your kids or so on.
Okay, that's so interesting. So interesting. Okay, now let's talk about retrogrades, because I think we spoke about it in part one and you mentioned it in part two that this year is like there's so many retrograde. In fact, that there's only like 2 10-day cycles in the whole year where we're not retrograding. So
Yeah.
can you like talk more to that? Like what is happening? Tell us what we need to do to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I want to say that retrogrades should not be feared, right? It's all part of the cycle. And we often hear that Mercury is retrograde and it's like this big fearful time, like what's going to break down. Essentially, it's just an energy of turning inward, reflecting and reviewing. And can you imagine if we never did that in our lives? Like, how could we possibly move forward? So, knowing and understanding when the retrogrades are occurring, we can actually actively use that to go and reflect and review and turn inwards and learn, like, what have we learned about ourselves over the last 3 months or however long it's been, so that we can then step forward with these insights in our pocket and understanding so that we can move forward from a better place. So retrograde, there's a lot of time this year where at least one planet will be in retrograde. We're starting the year off with Mars, Jupiter, Uranus in retrograde. Venus is going to have a retrograde this year. That doesn't happen every year. Mercury will have its 3 retrogrades. The outer planets go retrograde every year. So there is a lot of retrograde energy. So it's a lot of reviewing. Whilst we do have this new beginning energy, it's like, it's combined with this, what have I learned? What can I take with me to step into this new beginning so that I can move forward with the tools in my tool belt?
I mean, from the work that I do, especially the breakthrough work, to me, wow, what a powerful year we are going to have. Because to me, the two things in the work I do are always interlocked. Do you know what I mean? We learn at our most by going inward and reflecting in hindsight to gather our greatest lessons, that we can move forward more powerfully, more like aligned. So for me, I'm like, wow, what an exciting and powerful year we are about to have. You mentioned at the beginning of this the 3 phrases, which were, could you repeat them for me?
Yeah, so I said expansion of emotional wisdom, new beginnings, and empowerment and independence.
To me, like that excites me. That really excites me. That expands me, and just everything else you've shared. I mean, I feel like you could probably spend an hour, full hour talking about just the energies of 2025, which Abby is doing soon in her 2025 masterclass, which we're going to talk about in a second, because you are absolutely going to want to be on that masterclass and you can get all of the information. We're just giving you the teensy winciest powerful little snapshot. Do you feel like the energy is like, this is not a year to be feared? Because people are comparing the energies on social media. I've seen other astrologers, like it's a similar energy to 2020, which we spoke about at the beginning. And I don't want anyone, as we speak about that, to like have any fear. So yeah, what would you speak on that if people are seeing those things?
Yeah, I think I would say that there's a lot of energy on social media that wants to grab your attention through fear. And it's no different with astrology. I always say there's light and shade. So it's what we choose to play in. Do you want to use the challenge or the dark side of that, or do you want to use the light side? And we're always going to experience a little bit of both. But if we are choosing to step into a higher version of ourselves, then let's look at the light side, why not? And so, yeah, with this, we can't move forward without reflecting. And so I think that with all these retrogrades at play and all these outer planets shifting, people can see it as a fearful time. It's change, right? But this change is not 2025. It's going to be 2026 as well. Like the planets don't just shift, they retrograde back, and it takes a bit of time. And so this is an unfolding story, and we might not even see it complete till 2027. And as we finally settle into what the energies are going to be. So I think it's important not to fear it, to know that ultimately, like I said in the beginning, we have free will, we have our own intuition and our own guidance. And don't be feared by what you're hearing, because it's just one person's interpretation.
Well, nothing you've said has ignited any fear. It's all been
Exactly.
like definitely, you're a light witch. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You definitely work in the light, which I think is beautiful. And I love your energy. Okay, Abby. So you've given us a snapshot of the 2025 astrological energies.
like, I want to know more, like, where do I go? What's my next step? Because I feel like you've given some snapshots, and like, if somebody wanted to like get a full overview of 2025, what would be their step?
Yeah, there's a few options that you can do. Obviously, you can come and follow me on social media at Stars by Abby. I am going to be running my Astrology of 2025 class again in the third week of January. So you can come along to that and I'll give you an overview of what is happening. We'll dive deeper. If you really want to look more personally into things, you can come and purchase one of my 2025 astrology personalized reports and readings. You can get the report of 2025 along with a 90-minute deep dive into your personal astrology. We do a live Zoom call. I answer all your questions. You ask me what you want. I clarify things. That's the one to go for if you're really interested. You can also just buy the report, or you can come and have a natal chart reading with me or a forecast reading. There's so many options, but if you're curious about 2025, you want to get the report and reading, that's definitely the way to go.
So as you listening, what I would say is that the masterclass, the class that Abby's running, is a much deeper overview of 2025. And then if you're like, but I actually want to know about me personally, like I don't actually care about 2025. It's like, I want to know about me, my life, my money, my business, my relationships, my love, my challenges, my growth. Then you would do a report, which is a report personalized for you. But if you want the MVP of that, you do the report and you have a 90-minute private session with Abby. So you get your report. I think this is just so brilliant. So I just want to keep highlighting this. Is you get your report, you're going to be able to absorb all of that information, write down all of your questions, and then you're going to have your session with Abby where you can go deeper into the parts of the report that was personalized for you that like you're most excited about. And you could even ask questions. Hey, I'm going to focusing on my business. Like, what did you see? So yeah, I think that's such a brilliant option. And I've had that option in the past, and that's why I'm speaking to that. That's amazing. Abby, thank you so much for coming on to the She Who Dares podcast. Before we finish up, is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you wanted to share about the 2025 astrological energies, or do you feel like, nope, you've got everything you need and you just need to take the next step?
I think what I will say is if you are feeling fearful or worried, there is a really beautiful, expansive transit that is happening, and that is Jupiter moving into Cancer. And this is that I was talking about the expansion of emotional wisdom. So hold that energy. If everything else feels scary, if you're not feeling the new beginnings, there's a beautiful, nurturing, abundant, opportunistic time as Jupiter moves into Cancer. And so I think, there's always going to be things that are changing. There's always going to be things that are challenging, but equally there's always going to be things that are brilliant and provide us with good fortune and opportunities and ways to grow. So just remember that, I think is what I would say.
And what I think, when I look back to 2020, for example, I made a conscious decision, like a definitive decision where I was like, I will not be consumed by this fear. And I really decided in the work that I do is that if everyone's jumping into the pit of fear, I cannot get in that pit with them because I'm here to help people, right? Move through that fear. And so I want to also let you know what Abby is also saying is that you create your reality. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you get to decide. You're in control of how you think, how you feel, how you react, how you respond in all and every situation. And so, you often speak about astrology as the interpretation, perception, right? It's like, what lens are you looking at all of this through? Are you looking at through the lens of like love, excitement, compassion? Oh my God, growth, like I can create anything for myself. Or are you looking at through the lens of fear? So if you are, take those fear goggles off. Let's put on Abby's light, beautiful, expansive goggles and get excited about 2025. You want to book in for her masterclass, okay? And you want to book in for your 2025 reading. You want to do these things now because the year's coming. Like, do you know what I mean? You're not going to want to get your 2025 reading in March. The time to move and take action on these two things is now. We'll put everything in the show notes for you guys. Abby, thank you so much for coming on and doing part 1 and part 2. We had so much fun. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me, Crystal. It's been really fun. I always love talking about astrology. So it's been great to share it with you and all the listeners.
Excellent. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy. Chat soon.
Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. If you loved this episode, be sure to share that with me by leaving me a review, and head over to the She Who Dares official Instagram account at She Who Dares Official, hit follow, slide into my DMs, and share with me the impact this episode has had on you. And before you go, I'm going to leave you with this. The universe is responding to you. It is following your lead. You are the one who has to move first. And when you do, the whole universe will move with you, because it's I lead, the universe follows. When I move, the universe moves with me. That is our official She Who Dares mantra. I want you to write it down, put it on a mirror, and I want you to remind yourself of it every day. When I lead, the universe follows. When I move, the universe moves with me. When you follow this She Who Dares mantra, you are going to unlock the magic of the universe, and you are stepping into your most powerful self. I can't wait to see you for the next episode. Thanks for being here.